Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the COVID Long Haulers podcast. We are a community of people who've been brought together by this illness and wanted to create this resource for people who are struggling with long COVID and want to hear the stories of folks who've been through it, who are going through it, and how they're surviving it. My name is Jessie, and I will be your host for this episode. Our guest today is Rush, who was our host for last episode. Welcome to the show, Rush.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
So, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I'm from Scotland, in case you can't tell by my accent. I'm a fairly normal guy. I work an office job. I have a cat. I like cycling. I like writing. I was in good health before COVID kicked off. Like no health conditions or anything like that. Wasn't on any medications. I was fully vaccinated. I'd had the main one and the two boosters. So just an average 38-year-old guy, I think.
Your first infection was a year ago?
Yeah, I got infected in May 2023, so I was quite late to the COVID party. I'd
Oh,
been,
congratulations on being late.
yeah, wasn't a party I'd ever hoped to crash, but got there in the end.
Yeah.
Fashionably late, I think you call it.
Yes, yes. So was that your only infection so far?
Yes. So I'd been visiting some old uni friends in Glasgow, here in Scotland, that I hadn't seen in forever. And I'm fairly sure that one of my friend's wife had COVID that night. She
Mm.
was really sick, and she
Oh
kept having
no.
like these severe coughing fits, and would have to go outside or sit down to recover. So, like for me, this obviously set off alarm bells, and I remember asking my friend, "Is she okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, she's just got like baby flu or whatever." And I'm like, "Well, as long as it's not COVID." And he says, nah, she works in a nursery, so she has to test for COVID regularly. And I later found out that she'd run out of tests quite some time ago, so she didn't actually know what she had when she went out. My guess is it was COVID, but
Oh,
there's obviously no way for me to know. But another friend of mine who was out with her all night as well didn't catch anything. So
that is
it's kind of,
wild.
yeah, it's a big question mark, but I spent pretty much the whole evening with them and then stayed over at their place. So I think I was essentially swimming in COVID for the best part of a day.
You got a lot of exposure that
Yeah,
evening.
I got dosed. So I'm like
Oh.
within 24 hours of getting home, I tested positive. But you know, it tells you to wait like 15 minutes for a result. This test was like you've got COVID within 30 seconds of me.
It was super COVID. That is a bummer. So it sounds like you had symptoms pretty quick then. What was that acute infection like for you?
Yeah, I mean, despite having super COVID initially, like the COVID itself was mild. Like it was boring, really. I had it for like 8 days and then I got better. I lost my sense of taste and smell for about two of those days. Felt really rough for maybe a day. And that was the worst of it. COVID was like an absolute walk in the park by comparison to what long COVID had in store for me.
That's a really interesting, consistent point with a lot of stories of long COVID folks is that, a lot of folks say nowadays, oh, I had it, it was mild. Okay, well, just hold your horses because a lot of us had that mild infection
Yeah.
that turned into something not mild at all.
Yeah,
So,
it's crucial to say that because honestly, like if I just had COVID and then long COVID was never really a thing, I might have been one of those people just going about saying, "What's the big deal?" It's basically like a very mild flu. You just get over it. But then, like, it's probably important for me to say, actually, I did not realize I had long COVID for about a month of suffering through some pretty severe and I think what are probably kind of exotic symptoms and
huh.
it's mainly those exotic symptoms that are the reason I want to tell this story because for me the whole experience was like it was totally bewildering and I want to help spread awareness for the kinds of things that COVID can do to you that aren't widely reported in the media. And I think probably some people have long COVID without even ever realizing it.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Is so how like soon after your acute infection did you start having these bizarre symptoms?
It started for me probably, I think retrospectively, I thought the first symptoms I had were urological in nature, like to do with my kidneys and urine. But looking back on it, I know that's not quite correct now because I don't know, I feel like maybe for a week before all those started, I started having panic attacks out of nowhere. Like I'd be at work, I'd be totally fine, and then suddenly I'm like, "You're about to die. You're about to die. The second you're going to die." It's
Oh
just like
no.
you know what panic attacks are like. They just spin you up into this insane, stressful
Yes.
situation for no reason whatsoever. I had suffered from panic and anxiety in my mid-20s, so I was sort of familiar with it, but it hadn't bothered me at all for more than a decade. So for this to come wham out of the blue was really unusual. But I didn't associate
Wow.
that with anything. I just thought, okay, well, here we are again with anxiety somehow.
My old
I'll
friend.
just
Yes.
come knocking back at my door, so I'll just deal with that hopefully, and maybe my life will get better again. But then it just got progressively worse from there.
How long after your acute infection did all of this start?
It was 2 weeks after, like I was completely
Okay.
fine for 2 weeks, and then wham, all this stuff started happening. So the panic attacks started, and then around the same time, I started getting these urological issues. So I'll just start from there. These symptoms I had with long COVID have absolutely no relation to the symptoms that I had for the acute infection of COVID. They're
Hmm.
all different. Um, so, like I said, one Monday morning, 2 weeks after I'd recovered from COVID, I woke up. I went to the bathroom as normal, got ready for work as normal, went to work as normal, but I just felt weird, like kind of bloated, kind of nauseous. So I ended up leaving work around mid morning, and I went to work from home. And when I got home, I went to the bathroom again, and that's where it started. Like my kidneys went into overdrive. This is what the doctor told me retroactively, and I started peeing like it was the Niagara Falls coming out of me. It was
Oh no.
absolutely nuts. Yeah, longest pee of
Unnatural,
my life.
not something you're used to doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, where is all this liquids coming from? It was just incredible, and I'd already been to the bathroom that morning, so like it made zero sense.
It was
And
very
by the time I
concerning.
was Yeah, very alarming. By the time I was done, I felt like I'd pretty much urinated my entire body weight. I was shaking,
Oh,
you know?
I'm laughing, but
And
it's with you, not I'm it's not funny,
yeah,
but it's like, oh my God. Yeah.
it's all right. I can totally see the humor in it, I mean, in retrospect. But at the time when that's happening to you, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's awful.
and then it happened again.
The
Like I
same
had
day?
like right after, 10 minutes later, the same thing happened again. And I
Oh
had
my
nothing to
goodness.
drink. And I was like, okay, there's something seriously wrong with me. And then, sort of around that time, I developed this unquenchable thirst. Never experienced anything like it in my life. There's thirsty, and then there's this. So I started drinking water, and it would spend like a maximum of 5 minutes in my body, and then come straight out of me as clear as it went in.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that went on for hours. So obviously, I phoned the doctor, and they wanted to see me immediately because these symptoms are super weird.
Hmm.
And that's actually really rare in the UK. Is a doctor saying come in immediately. Usually it's like we'll have a telephone call with you 4 months from now.
Yeah. So they saw you that day then.
So I mean that morning actually, the first thing they tested
Wow.
me for was diabetes because thirst and urine output are a big red flag for
Right.
diabetes. That came back negative. They ran a bunch of other tests too, and they all came back normal.
Of
And
course.
yeah, they basically just said you're going to have to go home and just keep an eye on it. Basically, I was like, all right. And as the week went on, the problem sort of this is the week that gets weirder. So the week went on, and the problem gradually sort of flipped on its head until I could hardly pee at all. Like I was
Wow.
drinking. It was like the whole thing had reset, and I was like building up a supply of water to do another Niagara Falls moment. That's what
Oh
it
my
felt like to me.
goodness. That is really
So
scary. Like that would
yeah,
scare the crap out of me. Like that my body has changed this much in a week that
yeah.
something, oh, yeah.
And again, no clue this was long COVID, had no connection. I thought my kidneys were just randomly failing me. So I saw the GP again, and because I wasn't able to pee now, he was worried that I was going into retention, which is a life-threatening condition if it's not treated. So then I got sent to my local hospital's urology department as an emergency admission. Um, they confirmed that I was not in retention. I could still technically pee, even if it was only a tiny amount at a time. They did a bunch of tests. They put a finger up my bum. That was fun. And then they referred me on to a urology clinic like 3 months down the line to have a checkup later.
So it was basically just, let's make sure you're not dying right now.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not dying. Talk to someone in 3 months.
And that's yeah, exactly. That in a nutshell is like the care that you get with long COVID. It's A, are you about to immediately die? No, you're not. But you are intensely suffering. We understand that, but we can't do anything about that. So we'll just sort of keep an eye on it and deal with it in, 3 to 4 months. There's
Yes,
no
in the
in between.
meantime, you're experiencing all these symptoms for
Yeah,
all of these months, but you have to
yeah,
wait. And that's the other thing I think that's really key for folks that maybe aren't aware of long COVID is that this is kind of what this is the level of care that you'll get with your medical issues. I think a lot of people think, oh, science is great, medical system, it's well regarded, it's talked about highly, and really it does not cut down on your suffering. You're suffering for, you might not be dying, which thank goodness, right? There are many people that die from this disease acutely, but the long COVID side is more of a slow death. And
yeah,
it's a death of the life that you were living before. It's just this awful, just continuation of misery while you wait for help. And then
yeah.
you go see a doctor in 3 months and hope that they can help you. But then if they can't, they send you somewhere else for 3 months and et cetera. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but
No,
just
you're
wanted to make that,
100% on the money. Yeah.
yeah.
I think people maybe naively, I thought this myself, think that when you go in with all these mystifying symptoms, you're going to get the equivalent of some doctor house,
That's
just dedicating
exactly what I thought.
his, yeah, he's just going to dedicate his career
Yeah,
temporarily to figuring out the puzzle that is you. And
right.
when you get
Because
met with none of that, then you're just shocked. Like, am I really just on my own in this?
yeah, long COVID is like this, or COVID is this worldwide disease that's killed so many people, that has done so much damage. And you think, like, oh, yeah, I'll have a doctor house by my side because they get how serious it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But you
that
don't
is
get that.
absolutely not it. Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
get is some sort of medical professional assessing that you're not imminently about to die and then discharging you from their care to go and deal with it yourself. From that point on, my kidneys would from being seen by the GP and seeing the urology place, my kidneys they would sort of alternate between this Niagara Falls overdrive mode and hardly working at all mode. Blood tests said my kidneys were normal. Common theme with all of this is tests saying I'm normal, by the way, which I'm sure we're all familiar with in this community.
Yes.
Uh,
Hmm.
but they calmed down. They weren't quite as extreme as they were in the beginning. It was sort of a horrible situation to be in because I'd just constantly be drinking water. I'd have to get up in the night to drink and then pee, and then just constantly doing that was exhausting. But it did calm down. It wasn't as extreme as it was in the beginning. And after my visit to the hospital for the urology stuff, the really bad symptoms started. Like long COVID was only just getting warmed up. So
Wow.
I noticed the next day that it was taking me a really long time to eat a sandwich. Like I spent something like 5 hours trying to eat one sandwich, and all it did was make me extremely nauseous. And after that, my appetite dropped off a cliff, and for the next 3 weeks, I wouldn't be able to eat anything more than about 300 calories a day. I had something
Wow.
called Yeah, it's something called gastroparesis, which is gastro stomach paresis paralysis, so stomach paralysis. It's essentially food was going in and it wasn't being emptied from my stomach, so it was just sitting there. I felt incredibly bloated all the time. It actually made it difficult to breathe. I couldn't, to use the technical term, empty my bowels most days.
Hmm.
And when I actually did manage to do it, food just came out undigested. So it was sitting in my stomach, it wasn't being broken down, and then it would eventually make its way out the other end way later than it should. It would just take a
Okay.
very long time. It would
Yeah.
like my
You're not
bowels would
absorbing the
clench.
nutrients. You're not getting the
Exactly,
nourishment from food that you need to survive.
exactly. I also developed like a permanent choking sensation in my throat, which was made even worse by eating.
Is
But no, no,
the choking like a swallow, your swallowing mechanism wasn't working correctly?
I think, and with a lot of what I'm going to say in this podcast, I don't know for sure. I'm not a
Yeah,
medical person. I only
you're
guess at a
just
lot of these things. I think it was mainly related to GERD, so essentially acid reflux at this point, because food was going nowhere. I was bloated. I think the acid was pressing at the top of my throat and burning my esophagus, even though I couldn't
oh,
feel it. Yeah,
it's
but
very
it
painful then.
essentially, yeah, but it led to this choking sensation and discomfort, and even like just touching my neck would set it off. So I couldn't touch my neck. I couldn't really, if I moved my neck too far to the right or too far to the left, like if I was in my car at junction looking right to see if there was oncoming traffic, that would set off this choking sensation.
Mm.
So it became really sensitive. It was one of the most difficult symptoms to deal with because I had it for months. Um, but that wasn't the only thing that was going on at that time. I also developed constant pins and needles all over the right side of my body. For some reason, it was focused on the right hand side. So, like my face, my head, my right arm, it was a maddening sensation. It drives you insane when you have pins and needles for that long and you can't get rid of it.
So was there like
Yeah.
muscle weakness or it just like,
Yeah, there was muscle weakness too. I had my muscles would ache for days after like the lightest physical activity. They twitch as
wow.
well on their own. I started getting tremors, so like if I tried to hold my hand still, it would just shake like crazy. And this is a very odd symptom, and it's hard to describe, but it would also feel like my internal organs were vibrating when I lay down.
Huh.
Yeah,
You know, that's one of the most interesting things I think about this disease is that we are feeling things that there are not terms and words for. And it makes it really hard to describe to a medical professional,
yeah,
like, hi, I feel like my organs are vibrating. They look at you like you are crazy. But
uh,
it just because we don't have the words for it or that we don't really know what the cause is, it really doesn't take away that we're experiencing it, that we're feeling it.
again, I did not know any of this was long COVID at this point. Actually, at this point, I was starting to think I had some sort of neurological disease, like maybe Parkinson's, because
Yeah.
like everything in my body was just going haywire and shutting down, and I was trembling and shaking, and had pins and needles, and my stomach wasn't working, and I was
So many
constantly
different
peeing.
systems, like just different systems. They're not, it's not the same thing like, oh, I have this one problem. I have 8 problems in 8 different parts of my
Yeah,
body.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
just, it was like my body had just gone bananas, like nothing was
Hmm.
working properly. So all of that caused me a ton of anxiety and stress. I started having
Yeah.
constant panic attacks, mainly actually due to the choking sensation. That's really difficult to cope with, but also the overall feeling that my body was just failing. Like it was a good few weeks at the beginning where my body felt like it was just permanently locked in fight or flight mode. And I
Hmm.
would say those were easily the worst weeks of my entire life. It is hell to endure that sort of level of panic for so long. 3 weeks of that, you know.
Yeah. Just the chemicals that are running through your body just from that. And then you're likely not sleeping well at that time,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep.
So, and you're not digesting food very well. So you're not getting your body is like you said, it's going bananas. It's like, what's going on here? I can't function. I can't sleep. I can't do anything. And that makes not just physical stuff, but mental health stuff worse. So probably doesn't help the panic. Whatever
Yeah,
the, chicken or egg situation is here, I don't know which comes first, but just the combination of all those things are you, I imagine you're like locked in a vicious cycle.
yep. So you touched on like the mental side of it there, and like there's some major elements of it that are purely mental. Like the throat issues that started worsening with talking actually. The choking sensation would come on with a vengeance if I spoke for more than a few minutes at a time, which led to increased social isolation because I couldn't even talk to my parents on the phone for more than a few minutes, and I'd been relying on them for emotional support. Long COVID
Yeah.
cut that lifeline away, you know. I
Hmm.
started having episodes of confusion, which I know now was what we call brain fog, which, by the way, I think is a very cute term for what feels like a severe concussion. I don't know if people
Yeah.
get it to differing levels of severity, but for me, it was really difficult to think at all for hours at a time. I couldn't speak properly, couldn't get my words out. I didn't know the right words for a situation. And I work in uh, in communications, so for me, that's really unusual.
Were you able to work at this time? I'm assuming you'd have to take time off.
I ended up out of work for about 6 weeks with the whole symptom package that I had. It was in between the gastro stuff kicking off and this brain fog that I'm now talking about. Somewhere between those two things starting, I started working from home to begin with because I couldn't operate, I couldn't function in the office. And then at a
Mm.
certain point, I couldn't even keep up the pretense that I was able to function from home anymore, and I had to say to my work, I can't do this. I need to take some time off. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's
my work was very supportive. I was incredibly lucky to work with the company that I did, and the colleagues that I did during the period where I had long COVID, because they were supportive, they weren't overbearing, they believed me, which
that's
was, you know,
huge.
it is huge because a lot of people work for companies that just think people are putting it on to try and get some time off work. And to just have that, I've worked for my company for 15 years, so they know me pretty well. I've never had long-term sickness, so I think that factored in. I've known the CEO of the company for a long time, and I've worked with the colleagues that I've worked with for a long time. So I think they just took me at my word. They could also see things that were in the run up going wrong with me because I was quite open with them when the urological stuff started.
Yeah.
I would tell them what was happening, or some of them at least. So they got to see it develop and get worse to a point where it just came to a crescendo and I couldn't be in there anymore.
I think that's
But
really important and an important point too, that these different communities that we belong to, our work community, our family, um, they can see like it can be very obvious the change in us. It's not just us feeling it. It's not just me saying, "Oh, I don't feel well," and everyone's like, "But you look fine," which does happen, of
mhm,
course, with chronic illness. People aren't able to discern invisible illness so well, but that these communities that you're part of, they can notice, but then also that you're cut off from them, which is an important lifeline
mhm,
for you for feeling like you belong in part of this world, not being able to talk to your family on the phone, not being able to talk to your colleagues that know you well and are supportive, but having to
mhm.
take time away from there to focus, fully on your recovery, which is no easy task.
Yeah, I feel like I'm lucky in the respect that because I had the support from my company, I didn't have to worry about just being dismissed or, you know, face major repercussions for what I was doing. And that let me concentrate on getting better. You know, there are
Yeah.
plenty of people in the long COVID community who lose their jobs or who don't have supportive colleagues or workplaces, and the amount of stress that must add to their situation is unfathomable to me, and it's totally unnecessary. Just going back to where I was with my symptom uh, symptom what would we call it,
Your
roller coaster.
cocktail of cocktail of
Yeah,
symptoms. I don't know.
I'd gotten to brain fog, I think, so I just felt confused all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'd find myself just staring into space, not knowing how I got there or why I was doing it. Short-term memory was gone. I
Mhm.
remember my mum spoke to me on the phone during one of those episodes, and she said it was like talking to a stranger. I don't really know what having dementia is like, but if I had to hazard a guess, I would say this was a taste of the early stages of it. Just confusing and bewildering and scary.
It is,
Uh,
I agree with that. Going through my own brain fog episode, I think you don't understand it unless you've been through it. I I've heard people say like, "Oh, sometimes I feel foggy or tired or, I need some coffee." And it's like that's not That's not the same thing. This is
No.
like you are incapacitated.
Yep.
You cannot do normal tasks. It's not,
Yeah.
it's less of a brain. Like I think of like a fog, like I'm driving through a fog. It's not like you're driving through a fog. It's like the
No.
fog is inside your car and you have
Yeah.
to drive, but you can't see the controls. You don't know which direction you're going. You don't even know where your hand is. So it's really, if that were the only symptom, that would be significant and awful. And
Yep.
you've got a whole lot of cocktail of symptoms here, like many long COVID folks.
Brain fog, I really don't like the term brain fog. Like I said earlier, it just sounds very cute, it's just a bit of fog. What's the problem? We deal with fog in our day-to-day lives all the time. It's not like that. For me, the closest thing that I can relate it to was having a severe concussion. I've had a severe concussion
Mhm.
once before in my life, and it's like you almost get stuck in like a loop of not understanding what's happening to you, asking the same questions over and over again because you've forgotten that you've asked them in the past. It's brain damage, and
Yes.
that's what brain fog is. It's not a temporary ailment. It's your brain is damaged by something and it isn't able to think to the same level that you're used to. From one of my brain fog episodes, I ended up in A&E on a GP referral with a suspected mini stroke. That's how bad it is. Something called that. It's called a TIA. I can't remember what that stands for, but that's what it was suspected. It's a mini stroke essentially. So I ended up at A&E for that. Got kicked out after they made me wait for about 4 hours, saying they don't do investigative work.
So
Yep, yep,
the doctor sent you there and then they said,
yep.
sorry.
Yeah, they said they didn't understand why the doctor had sent me there. They don't do investigative work. He must be new, is what they thought. And I was like, okay, well, that's 4 hours that I've just sat here for no reason.
Wow, that's
I
awful.
think,
I'm really sorry that
yeah, well, we all go through this. This is what I've
I know.
learned.
I'm just,
Everybody has
you know,
massive
it's
amounts of their time wasted by these pointless appointments.
so did those symptoms resolve that you were experiencing that led them to tell you to go to A&E?
Yeah, they did. The brain
Okay.
fog, I was lucky. I had severe episodes of it, maybe like 4 or 5 times, and then it just didn't happen again. Or if it did, it
Mhm.
was to a much lessened degree to the point where like I was maybe just sluggish instead of, properly feeling like I had dementia or something like that.
Right.
But it seemed to trigger the next, probably one of the worst long-standing symptoms I had, and that was losing the ability to sleep properly. My sleep just became incredibly broken with me waking up every hour on the hour. And sleep to this point had been my one and only respite from this symptom hell. And that got
Hmm.
taken away from me as well. And then I was just awake all the time to suffer through all of this. And after about a month of all of these things together, um, I think it's safe to say that I was suicidal. I didn't want to kill myself, but I just knew that if this degeneration continued, like what was going to go wrong next? What was I going to lose the ability to do next? I knew that if that would continued on, I would either have to live in a body that was just constantly torturing me every waking moment of every day, or I would have to kill myself. And that is
That's,
a very dark place to be.
yes. And one that I see it a lot. I know we've talked a lot in our Discord about this throughout, the past year and folks on various subreddits about, the life that you had before, the body you had before, and then losing so much, losing going through your journey here, losing your ability to connect with your friends, your workplace, you can't work, you can't even sleep, your
Mhm.
food isn't even really nourishing you. That kind of existence naturally, I think, would lead most people to say, how can I continue like this? How can I keep going? There's, when I go to the doctor, there's no help there. No one knows what's wrong, and everything keeps getting
Mhm.
worse. I can't continue this way. It's a really dark place to be.
Yeah. And at this point, again, did not know what was happening to me. Hadn't pieced it together that it was long COVID. So like that was the symptom journey, if you like.
Hmm.
And it does. I do have, for anybody who's made it this far into the podcast, it does get better. I promise you. This isn't just a depressing story of, oh, my life is horrible now. It does get better, and I'm moving to that part now. So the frustration I think I had during all of this process, and this is going to target the medical community a little bit, was, and it's not really their fault for a lot of it, but um, it is what it is, essentially. So, like, I do more blood tests. All my organs were fine. My vitamin levels were fine. Even my cholesterol levels were fine, apparently. And I'm on the overweight side. So I was surprised to see that. I was checking the normal box there too, and I was like, according to all of these tests, I was in perfect health, and yet nothing in my body was working right. It was mystifying. And the biggest issue I had with doctors is that they would only look at the acute symptoms and didn't really seem capable of taking a step back to try and see the bigger picture. They would be like, "Oh, you've got urological issues. Here's a referral to a urology clinic. Oh, you've got gastroenterological issues. Here's some laxatives. Go see a gastroenterologist. The earliest appointment we have is in 6 months. Good luck with that. Oh, you can't sleep. Here's a pill for that. Oh, you've got peripheral neuropathy. Is your job stressful? That's the question they always ask. They always seem disappointed when you say, "I work in an office job, not like down a mine with explosions going on all around me all the time." No, they want you to say, "Yes, my job is stressful," because then they can immediately pivot to, "It's just anxiety. It's all in your head." I
Hmm.
knew all of these things going wrong at once meant there had to be an underlying cause, but the doctors didn't really seem capable of looking for it. And
It
that,
is surprising how quickly people without mental health training or specialty jump to mental health causes for physical problems that if you talk to someone who, a psychiatrist that did actually like specializes, they're not going to say, yeah, clearly water going straight through you is anxiety, or clearly, this brain fog.
yep.
So, but it just we keep coming up against it of people in the medical community, medical professionals just saying, oh, it's somatic, it's in your head, or your anxiety
Mhm.
is causing these totally bizarre multi-system failures.
Yeah. The problem I've got is, the anxiety is a symptom. It's not a cause. It's a byproduct of the hell you're experiencing. But they latch onto that one word, anxiety, like it's the root cause of everything you're having, and it's just
Yeah.
not true. It's a byproduct. I mean, it might be true in some cases that people having. I know anxiety can cause physical problems because, like I said, I had it in my 20s. I know it can do that, but this was like the reverse side of that experience. I was having anxiety because of all the things I was experiencing this time around. And getting that through to a
Yeah.
doctor in the 5 minute slot that you get to speak to them is just not possible.
I think that's an
Um,
important point to make is that you had experience with anxiety. You know what it feels like. You knew what it felt like, and you're able to discern. And I think a lot of times medical professionals will look at your medical history if you have anxiety or depression and say, oh, well, it's just their depression or anxiety like acting up. And it's like, well, I've lived in this body for, however many years, and I know, and I manage whatever mental health condition I have. And I know enough to know that this is not that.
yep. And during, like, speaking of knowing what you know, like during all of this, I was constantly researching my symptoms and trying to find a common link with all of these things. Like a lot of us who've been through this, I think you just become this powerhouse of research trying to
Yes.
figure out what the hell is going
You
on.
become your
You
own
do.
Dr. House.
You read science journal, like you're sitting there reading science journals on your phone in your bed. You take
Hmm.
crash courses in biology and virology. You read an absolutely insane amount of material trying to piece all of it together. And in my case, my research was all to a T taking me back to one thing, and it's something called the vagus nerve. For those who don't know, the vagus nerve is your autonomic nervous system. It runs down from your ears, along your spine, and into your internal organs. It controls all of the systems in your body that you don't control directly. It controls urine output, it controls digestion speed, it controls bowel movements, it controls breathing, it controls your fight or flight response, it controls your rest and your sleep wake cycle, it controls speech, it controls your mood, it even controls tiny things that you wouldn't even think about, like mucus and saliva production, which were also going haywire in my body too, by the way. This one goddamn nerve network controlled everything in my body that had fallen into total dysfunction. And I'd been Googling relentlessly to try and find links between long COVID and vagus nerve damage, but I wasn't finding anything. And we are 3 years into the pandemic at this stage, so to find nothing was just really perplexing because I was like, there must be a link, there has to be, but I couldn't find one. So I was still operating on this assumption that it was some neurological disease thing that I'm just eventually going to become a vegetable from. And then my research threw me a lifeline because I found an article published by Forbes the same week that I was looking for it. So it was very new information talking about a study that had just been published linking long COVID to vagus nerve damage. And I genuinely believe that article saved my life because it put all of the puzzle pieces
Mm.
together for me. It connected all of the dots. I had long COVID, a weird and intense form of it, but long COVID nonetheless. And putting a name to your illness is absolutely huge. You finally
Hmm.
feel like you can fight back once you know what's kicking your ass.
Yeah.
So that was a
Yeah.
pivotal moment for me. I think it changed the trajectory of my illness entirely. And at that point, I started on the road to recovery.
So how did you fight back?
Well, that was part of the. I think mental is a huge part of it. Uh, now that I knew what the illness was, I knew things like most people recover from this within
Mm.
X years. I had data that I could look at that told me if you get long COVID, here's the recovery rate. Here's the kind of things people go through. Here's some resources that can help. There was lots of different things I could now try. I discovered the Discord community that you and I are both in. It was little things like that. The support started coming. As soon as I knew what was wrong with me, I was able to reach out to the places that could actually help me. Um, the endless medical appointments, which were like having a second job, they started to recede now that I was no longer needed to be tested for things I knew I didn't have. I guess I'm probably about 9 months in from long COVID now, and I'd say I'm mostly recovered, probably around the 6 month mark for me. Some people it takes 2 years, some people it takes 2 weeks. For me, it was 6 months. Everything slowly, like a snail's pace, slowly returned to almost normal. I'd say I'm not quite 100%. I'd say I got 90% of the way, and I don't think I'm ever getting that final 10% back. Long COVID has just lopped that chunk of my life quality off forever. But I'm at a point where my life is back to a good quality of living. Like I can live like this.
That's a lot of really interesting points that you just made. Number one, that you're not sure that you'll get that 10% back. And I've heard this a lot throughout the long COVID community that like a lot of us can quote recover, but have we ever fully recovered to where we were before? It sounds like you had to do a lot of these things yourself. You stopped making so many medical appointments and
Mhm.
you're managing your illness yourself. And that's the other thing that you kind of sign up for whenever you get COVID. I mean, nobody volunteers, right? But you don't have support from the medical system. You don't know if you're ever going to recover fully to what you were before your infection. And that is so traumatic.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people in the community talking about things like almost grieving for the person that you used to be. Um, and that's a mourning process that a lot of people have to go through with long COVID because they have lost so much of the
Yes.
joy from life that they just used to take for granted. A virus has come into your life through no fault of your own. You didn't do anything wrong. I was perfectly healthy before COVID got into my system, or so I thought. Like I had no underlying medical conditions that I was aware of that were significant. I wasn't on any medication for anything, and it did all of these things to me in the course of about a month. And I don't think there was anything I could do have done to have made it any different. I just had to suffer through that. And now that I know coming through it on the other end, there was a point during that process where I thought, I can't see a way out of this. I just can't see it getting anywhere but worse over time. But that stopped at a certain point. At a certain point, the decline stopped. I plateaued for a little while, and then the recovery did start. The recovery coincided with me discovering that article that I just talked about, which I think was coincidental, but would have been instrumental in terms of the sort of positivity boost it gave me. Just
Hmm.
finally having those answers was massive. Like I tried lots of different things, but I just wanted to focus before I get into that, I guess, on a lot of people don't know this, but COVID, it seems to have this unique ability to target all of the weaknesses in your body and dial those up to 11. It gets into your system. I've heard recently that like a lot of people consider COVID to be a respiratory disease, and it is, but it's primarily, from what I've read in the
Acutely.
research, yeah, but I've primarily heard that it's actually a circulatory disease. It mainly damages things like blood vessels, which explains all the neuropathy symptoms that you get, like the pins and needles and the tingling and the poor circulation. One of my friends has had long COVID, and she ended up with a heart condition from it. You know, it's like a dirty bomb goes off in your system, and it finds when it spreads throughout your body, it finds everywhere that maybe you're slightly weak on. And I think I was slightly weak on things like I think I had acid reflux undiagnosed before this, and it dialed that up to an 11, and now it's just in acid reflux hell, And it found other things in my body that maybe weren't quite up to scratch and weakened those as well. It weakens them severely, and then your body over time gradually gets back to that homeostasis. It tries to get to a
Hmm.
point where it can just cope, and I think that's what the body does automatically. Now, that leads me on to what I was going to say. With all the different things that you want to try when you get long COVID, everybody's going to have suggestions. If you listen to Callie's podcast, the one before this, the first podcast that we did, his solution is salt and electrolytes and changing your diet. And a lot of people have dietary triggers for long COVID. I'm fortunate in that I don't have any dietary triggers, but I know that a lot of people do. And so for them, his information is really useful. Other people find all sorts of different ways to cope with long COVID. Some work for them, some won't work for you when you try those solutions. But because you're so desperate, you'll probably try a lot of things over the course of trying to figure out what works for you. For me, and I don't mean to disincentivize or dishearten anyone, but virtually nothing worked. There were a few things that I found useful, like cold therapy for dealing with panic attacks and neuropathy, like cold compresses and cold shock therapy. I found at least distracted me. I tried breathing exercises to try and calm the vagus nerve. I tried, you name it, I tried it. I'd try anything at that point just to try and alleviate the pain that I was in and the suffering. And almost none of it worked. The main things that I think helped me were rest. Primarily, rest is huge. There's a huge link in the research between being able to rest immediately after you get long COVID and your recovery rate. So if you are able to rest, do so. And time is the main one. It's just time. You're going to have to endure this for a while, but ultimately your body wants to get back to that homeostasis, that state of being where it's able to function at a sort of consistent normal level, and it will get there for most people. It's just going to take a long time for some of us, hence why they call it long COVID.
I think it's a really important theme in a lot of recovery is really listening to your body. It's really hard to take the time to rest, and not because we don't want to, but reasons mentioned earlier that like, does your work support you in taking the time to rest? Do you have family obligations that keep you from doing that? I think that is really key is to take a really strong look at everything you have going on and simplify like crazy so that you can recover. Because if you don't take the time to rest, it will catch up with you with
Mhm.
a vengeance.
Yeah, and you actually touched on a really crucial and important point there when you said that you know your own body. That like because there's a couple of experiences I had with the medical community where if I'd have followed their advice, it would have been detrimental to my health. But choosing not to follow their advice because I knew my own body helped my recovery. And I'll give you an example of that.
Mhm.
When I was going through all the urology stuff and they were testing me, and I remember mentioning earlier that I got the finger up the bum test. The reason they put a finger up your bum, just for anybody who's curious, is to test the prostate because it can be enlarged and
Hmm.
that can impact on your bladder and that can cause, problems with urine flow,
Yeah.
frequency, and urine retention. So that's why they tested me for that. But my prostate is a normal size because I'm only 30. I was 38 when that happened. And that's an old man problem. That's like somebody towards their 60s gets an enlarged prostate. So it would have been really unusual for that to be an issue in the first place. But later on, when I was getting more urology tests, the nurse said, "Your test results are indicating that you have an enlarged prostate." And I'm like, "That sounds unlikely, given my age and the fact that a medical exam said it was normal size." And the nurse said to me, "So what I'm going to do is prescribe you a hormone to help shrink your prostate." Uh, Now, I didn't agree with her assessment, so I didn't take that hormone. And on a subsequent visit, 3 months later, to the same urology clinic, speaking to a different nurse, that nurse was shocked that I'd been prescribed what she referred to as a very nasty hormone that she would never have given me in that circumstance. And she was glad that I hadn't taken it because it would have had all sorts of side effects that I might have attributed to long COVID, but would have been down to the hormone that I was taking.
Wow.
So that was, yeah, so it was a good job I didn't take that. And my results after that second test showed major recovery, like it was almost normal, back to normal, after having done nothing. So the point I'm making is don't take everything. If it sounds wrong and it's coming from a medical expert, you don't have to trust them, and you probably shouldn't in all cases. And I have taken medication for long COVID, like I was prescribed PPIs to help deal with the acid reflux, and I took those, and they definitely helped. So there are medications that help, and there are some that you might get prescribed that might not be useful for you. So just be careful, is my only advice there, and do what you think is best for you.
I think a lot of folks that maybe haven't had any experience with chronic illness, um, you have a different relationship with your body. I've noticed that I have a totally new relationship with my body now that after trial and error and being ill for so long and finding what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse, it becomes easier in time to manage your symptoms because you really get so much practice. We learn to trust ourselves, which is a silver lining in this illness, I think. Before I would just power through things. And, if the doctor prescribed something, I'd be like, sure, I'll take it because science. And now I'm like, now that I see the lack of science that informs so much of policy and care, I'm very pro science, and I'm realizing how many places aren't pro science, which is really hard, a hard position to be in when you're ill and you're trying to find good information. So I would say to listeners, like, do your own research and also lean on some of the communities that have done that research already. I've learned so much from other members of the community. You're not alone. You don't have to be the only person kind of informing your own care.
Yeah, no, I agree. Our Discord community has been hugely supportive of certainly of me when I first joined it. Just being able to interact with some of the people that had already been through a lot of the things that I was experiencing, and just being able to bounce those stories off other people and have a sympathetic ear, and then have people like yourself, Jesse, who right at the beginning we were all poring over like scientific data together and comparing like research studies and things like that. And one person would find something that would explain something another person had, and you'd get that electric moment of
Aha.
excitement and yeah, this
Yeah.
makes sense to me, you know. And the theories do change over time. Like I initially thought that, and I talked about this just earlier. I thought that long COVID was somehow damaging my vagus nerve. It turns out that's not quite the mechanism. What COVID does in your gut is it destroys a lot of the serotonin production in your gut, which is a neurotransmitter that the vagus nerve uses to communicate between your brain and the rest of your body. And it's that breakdown of that serotonin that
Hmm.
causes the vagus nerve dysfunction that I described rather than direct damage to the vagus nerve. So that's science that have evolved over the time. That's the most current understanding that I have of what happened to me. But I also believe again, this is, these are all scientific theories. There might be people out there that have other theories, but you'll work it out yourself when you go through long COVID. But there's another theory that there's persistent viral reservoirs in the body. The long COVID still lives on inside us after we think we've beaten it. Even people who didn't necessarily suffer major long COVID symptoms probably had some sort of viral reservoir. And I think that is the other side of it for me. It explains things like some of the issues that I have remaining, which are like mainly gastric. They're mild, they're inconvenient, they're not life ruining, but they're annoying, and I still have to resolve those. I think those are more related to ongoing inflammation in my body, which I think might
Hmm.
be related to this viral reservoir theory. Now I think my serotonin production levels are back to normal. And when it comes to
Yeah.
medication, a lot of people have said, SSRIs cured them almost overnight. And those are serotonin reuptake drugs.
SSRIs can make such a big difference. There's the gut brain axis.
Yeah.
There's so much. So, and not to get too far into the weeds on these things, but it
Well,
sounds like
actually,
serotonin could really have helped, or that could have been maybe part of the panic part for you, Rush.
yeah, well,
That
it's
this,
again like, yeah, it's all linked. And every symptom I had is linked to the vagus nerve and this serotonin production, which, is the communication device between your brain and the network. So it could all be linked. But like I say, I'm not a medical professional. This is just my experience, and this is what I
yeah.
know to be true for me.
Right. We're just a bunch of people that have had desperation enough to read a lot of medical journals and papers and talk to a lot of people and get a lot of experience. But of course, we don't have medical training. I will say that I think sometimes that can be used as a gatekeeping mechanism, like, oh, well, you're not a doctor, so you don't understand. Um,
Yeah.
because there's some things that are completely understandable to a person that isn't a doctor, or so I would say don't let the fact that you're not a medical professional keep you from taking charge of your health. But just, do it wisely.
The long COVID fight that we're all in is a battle that you fight mostly alone.
Yes.
You think that you're going to have all of this support from the medical community, but you're not going to have that. They're going to be just as confused as you are with how to
Hmm.
deal with your package of symptoms, which will be unique to you. This is one of the problems with long COVID and why we don't have a cure for it, because it's unique to every individual that has it. And the doctor will try to treat the symptoms you present with, but they won't be able to treat the underlying cause. And in my view, the only thing that really treats the underlying cause is time and rest. And you may find supportive drugs on that journey that do help you. And if so, then fantastic. That'll ease your suffering while you get better. But don't necessarily rely on it and don't take anything that's going to be dangerous to your health.
So just kind of to wrap it all up with a bow here, you mentioned before you'd recovered 90%. Do you want to talk a little bit more on how you are today? What kind of things you do to keep your symptoms at bay?
I don't really have to do anything to keep my symptoms at bay, as long as I don't do anything silly like, drink a load of alcohol. I can't really
Mhm.
drink anymore after having long COVID. The
Yeah.
hangovers now are like 4 times more severe than I ever had. I don't
Uh,
understand why, but
it's
I've
the
just
gift that
cut
keeps
that out of
on
my life.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah, I've drastically reduced. I've scaled back a lot of things. I don't take caffeine anymore. I used to be, uh, I guess, a caffeine addict. I would have caffeine every day of my life, and now it's
Man, I
gone.
miss espresso. Oh, yeah.
It's just gone.
Maybe,
Like
yeah.
I don't really miss it. I don't miss it at all, to be honest. So
Well, that's
I
good.
traded that in terms to try and get my sleep back to a reasonable level, and it probably helped a bit.
Hmm.
Now that I don't need it anymore, I'm just not going to go back to it. So I have made some lifestyle changes, but largely I have gone back to living the way that I lived before I got COVID. Um, my health is, as I said, 90% recovered. My fitness is garbage now because I've been in rest mode for so long. So I'm
Hmm.
gradually building up to, being able to work out again and go cycling again. So I'm hoping to get back on my bike this summer and go out for a few cycles, and that'll be a nice milestone for me. But by and large, I would say it's a positive outcome for me. I'm hoping that I hope I'll get that 10% back someday. But if I don't get it back, it's not the end of the world. I can live with it.
Yeah, that is just so good to hear that you have so much of your old life back. And after all of the suffering, all of just the absolute hell that you've gone through, that there is there is light at the end of this tunnel for many of us.
Mhm.
So really, really happy for you, Rush, that you've gotten to this place. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the long COVID community? Anything that we missed talking about?
I don't think so. I would just reiterate that if you are out there and you are suffering, I would highly recommend joining the COVID Long Haulers Discord, which is the community that puts together this podcast. That community has been huge for me to help me recover, and I think it would be beneficial for others who are going through the same thing. So check it out.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much, Rush, for coming on and sharing your experience. I hope that you listeners found it interesting. If you are listening to this on Spotify and would like to join our Discord community, we have a link in the description so you can come and find us. We hope to continue to put out these episodes once a month or so because everyone's long COVID is unique and everyone has an entirely different experience and stories. The things we covered today with Rush will resonate with some people, but not with everyone. So there's lots of different stories to tell with people who will touch on different subjects. And if you're one of them, join our community and hit us up. And until next time, folks, this has been the COVID Long Haulers podcast, and we will catch you on the next one.